In the American West, one place holds a special allure to those who have discovered its splendor: Montana. From the rolling plains and rivers to majestic mountain vistas and lush forests abundant in wildflowers, the Big Sky Country is nothing shy of breathtaking. And if you listen close, you just might hear the pulse of a regional railroad that has been beating strongly for nearly a quarter of a century: the Montana Rail Link. Rolling on over 900 miles of former Northern Pacific track through Montana, as well as northern Idaho and Washington State, the MRL passes through some of the most splendid scenery the NP had to offer, as well as some of the toughest obstacles on the Northern Pacific: Bozeman Pass and Mullen Pass. 7 Idea Productions visited MRL in January and July of 2011 and have put together a 2-part series covering the mainline action. In Part 1, we will cover the First and Second Subdivisions between Jones Junction and Helena, Montana. Along the way, you'll thrill to the sight and sound of genuine 20-cylinder SD45s shoving heavy unit trains over Bozeman Pass. You'll see MRL and BNSF trains at several scenic locations such as Winston Hill. In Part 2, we will continue west over the 3rd, 4th, and 10th subdivisions to Sandpoint, Idaho. This is railroading at its finest. Join us for MRL Montana Mainline Part 1, Jones Junction to Helena. Montana Rail Link serves as a bridge line for BNSF Railway between Laurel, Montana and Spokane, Washington. BNSF trains make up the majority of traffic seen here, although they are operated by MRL crews. Several locals run over the line, as well as 2 system-wide manifest trains, all of which use MRL power. The First and Second Subdivisions are controlled mostly via CTC by the MRL East Dispatcher in Missoula. We will begin at Jones Junction and head west 254 miles to the crew change point at Helena. When paying a visit to Jones Junction, don't expect much in terms of scenery. This eastern terminus of Montana Rail Link trackage is, just as the name implies, a junction. BNSF Railway's Forsyth Sub heads east toward Glendive, Montana, while the Bighorn Sub sees plenty of coal trains out of Wyoming's Powder River Basin. The sun is low in the Montana sky as BNSF 9134 East appears at Moran Junction on the Bighorn Sub. From Fort Worth, Texas, Dispatcher 64 has lined the train through the junction and past a giant cottonwood tree. The train has slowed to 35 miles per hour as it rolls through a loop track leading to Jones Junction. This train will not be running on MRL. It has been granted a track warrant on the Forsyth Sub to Pompey's Pillar, 15 miles to the east of Jones Junction. If this had been a westbound train, it would have entered MRL at Huntley, around 4 miles to the west. The loaded DEEX coal hoppers are owned by the Detroit Edison Company, which provides electricity to most of southwest Michigan. Coal trains like this one can weigh upwards of 18,000 tons. The next morning, we are set up just east of Jones Junction, as another coal train takes the same route. Because of our proximity to the Powder River Basin, coal traffic counts for the majority of trains rolling through the junction. As the remote-controlled SD70 Mac reaches the junction, the engineer begins notching up as track speed increases from 35 to 60 miles per hour on the Forsyth sub. BNSF 9631 approaches from the east with a mixed manifest for Laurel, Montana. The former Burlington Northern SD70 Mac is in charge as the train enters MRL's first subdivision at milepost 209.9. The first subdivision is the shortest on the MRL, covering only 33.6 miles from here at Jones Junction to Sperling, just west of the Big Yard at Laurel. Shortly after arriving on MRL track, trains roll through Billings, the largest city in Montana. Founded by the Northern Pacific Railroad in 1882, Billings drew settlers from far and wide. A westbound BNSF passes the restored NP Depot in downtown Billings. The former Burlington Northern SD60M is a nice treat. West of Billings is Laurel Yard. With 30 classification tracks, it is the largest yard on the MRL. Here, BNSF trains are sorted and reclassified for destinations to the west over the MRL, north to Great Falls via the Laurel Sub, south to Casper, Wyoming via the Casper Sub, and to eastern destinations via the Forsyth and Bighorn Subs. Montana Rail Link crews switch an average of 250,000 cars per year. MRL's system-wide manifests, the LM and ML, originate and terminate here. We continue west and are now on the second subdivision, which covers the next 220.7 miles between Sperling and Helena. Just west of Sperling, an eastbound empty Roberts Bank BC coal train races back to the Powder River Basin for another load of black diamonds. East of the siding at Rapids, a westbound manifest splits the intermediate signals at milepost 29.4 as it sprints through the Yellowstone River Valley. This former Northern Pacific line follows the easy course of the Yellowstone River all the way to Livingston. On a hot July afternoon, we set up along the banks of the Yellowstone, just west of the community of Columbus, as a westbound BNSF manifest passes milepost 42. At milepost 51, the railroad crosses the Yellowstone on a 3-span through truss bridge, as demonstrated by another eastbound empty coal train. The spring of 2011 brought lots of flooding to the region, closing 2 of MRL's branch lines. This cottonwood is the latest victim of the spring floods along the Yellowstone. Our attention is drawn to the melodious throb of 2-stroke EMD prime movers as a pair of SD40-2 XRs and an SD45-3 lead today's Laurel to Missoula train over the river. Unlike most of the trains you'll see on this line, the LM and ML both use MRL power. Milepost 80.9 marks the community of Big Timber, which was founded in 1880. It was named for the big cottonwood trees that grew along the Yellowstone. With the 11,000-foot peaks of the Crazy Mountains for a backdrop, an eastbound empty coal train rolls past the Big Timber Depot. Flowing northward from the Continental Divide in Wyoming's Absaroka Range and through Yellowstone National Park, the Yellowstone River heads north into Montana, turning east at Livingston, and then across the Great Plains on its 692-mile journey to the Missouri in North Dakota. We pause for a moment along its banks near milepost 99 as the LM train rounds a curve at Elton Bluff. Just east of Livingston at Mission Creek Road, we find a unique grade crossing signal. A relic from the Northern Pacific days, this signal works like a block indicator. The green light implies that there is no immediate train approaching and it's safe for motorists to cross. As you can imagine, the red light indicates a train is in the block and may be approaching. The red light plus the sound of a whistle means we better stay put, because the LM is heading our way. At mile 115.4, Livingston is a significant location along the second subdivision. It is here that the railroad and the Yellowstone River go their separate ways. A westbound coal train slows as it crosses the Yellowstone one last time. Helpers will have to be cut in here before continuing on over Bozeman Pass. Train crews use a formula to determine exactly where helpers need to be added based on the number of cars in the train and the total number of the locomotive's rated power axles. This train has 125 cars of Powder River Basin coal bound for Roberts Bank, British Columbia. The conductor on the helper set will make the cut roughly 62 cars from the head end. He lifts the pin, and the first section of train continues west into the yard. With the first section cleared up, the helpers cross over to the main to a joint with the second section. After the air is cut in, the helpers drag the second half of the train into the yard, where it will be put back together. The middle unit is offline and will not be needed. We note the remote-controlled units are currently offline and are simply being dragged into the yard. They have been placed in set-out mode as they are not needed during this procedure. Livingston was the original entrance to Yellowstone National Park in an era when most Americans traveled by train. One of its main attractions is the old Northern Pacific Station built in 1902. Besides serving travelers heading to nearby Yellowstone Park, the depot was headquarters for the Northern Pacific's Central Division. This magnificent structure was designed by the same firm that created New York's Grand Central Station. It served rail passengers until 1979, when Amtrak's North Coast Hiawatha was discontinued. Today, it is operated by the Livingston Depot Foundation and serves as a museum and community center. The depot is on the National Register of Historic Places. Another interesting landmark in Livingston is the old Northern Pacific locomotive shops now operated by MRL. At one time, this was NP's primary steam and diesel shop in the West. In 1988, this also became home of the Livingston Rebuild Center, where aging locomotives and rail cars were remanufactured or repaired. During our January 2011 visit, we found the yard full of vintage EMD locomotives, reminding us of how many rail yards looked just a few decades ago. Sadly, some of these units are only weeks away from the scrapper's torch. Looking back toward the depot, the ML train is seen arriving from the west. A 5-unit helper set was added to the point for the climb over Bozeman Pass. The helpers will be cut off here at Livingston, and the train will continue east to its destination at Laurel, around 100 miles away. Two helper sets are stationed in Livingston to assist trains up and down Bozeman Pass. During our January visit, the helpers were sets of 5 units, usually SD45s with 1 or 2 SD40s.
We got a clear one.
With mid-train helpers ready, BNSF 4069 West prepares to tackle the 11-mile 1.8% mountain grade with a loaded grain train. The grade begins just as soon as it leaves town. The throb of 4 genuine 20-cylinder SD45s and a 16-cylinder SD40 reverberates through Livingston as the helpers roar out of town. The Absaroka Beartooth Wilderness is caught in winter's grip near the northern entrance to Yellowstone National Park. Our viewpoint is from the bottom of Bozeman Pass as an eastbound BNSF manifest heads down grade and into Livingston on a cold January afternoon. Another 5-unit helper set provides additional dynamic braking on the rear of this train. A loaded BNSF coal train tackles the grade behind a pair of GE's Evolution Series ES44 ACs. The train is made up of PGEX cars, owned by Portland General Electric, and are on their way to a coal-fired plant in Boardman, Oregon. The Portland Rose logo makes these cars easy to spot. Another 5 MRL units add their muscle to the train. We return to Bozeman Pass in July and again catch the LM train we first saw crossing the Yellowstone east of Big Timber. It has picked up a couple of cars at Livingston and rear-end helpers for the assault on the hill. We noticed during our summer visit that MRL had gone from the 5-unit sets of older power to 3-unit helpers consisting of 2 SD70 Aces with an older EMD in the middle. The big lash-ups of mostly SD45s appeared to be a thing of the past on Bozeman, making us glad we caught them when we did back in January. That's not to say MRL's new SD70 Aces don't put on a good show. A full moon rises over the mountains in southern Montana. A red block promises another eastbound move heading down the grade. 5 SD40-2 XRs return light to Livingston, having shoved a manifest up to Bozeman Tunnel. As the sun sets, another day of rail fanning comes to a close. Farther up the mountain at milepost 120.83, we catch the 125-car coal train we first saw adding helpers at Livingston. A headlight pierces the dusk near milepost 124 as BNSF 4069 West tackles Bozeman Pass on a cold winter's night. As the head end disappears into a cut bank, our attention is again turned to the approaching mid-train helpers. The pulsing throb of the old 20-cylinder two-stroke EMDs under load can be heard for miles in the winter air. To many diesel fans, this is a classic sight and sound of mountain railroading that is now nearly a memory. The next day, we set up at the same location on top of a cut bank as the PGE coal train heads up grade. The approaching helpers are the same set we saw the night before, except the trailing SD45 number 332 has been replaced with SD40 number 263. As we shot these scenes, several SD45s among other vintage EMDs were about to be sent to Portland, Oregon for scrap metal. And scenes like this were about to become a thing of the past, as MRL soon began using more fuel-efficient SD70 Aces for helper service on Bozeman Pass. We relocate just west of the crossing as a morning grain train takes the same route. At East Muir, an eastbound coal train coasts down the 1.8% grade. We return to Bozeman Pass in July as a westbound coal train works uphill near West Muir. As the rear of the train passes our location, the head end has already reached summit and is beginning down the west side of the pass at West End. Right now, the mid-train helpers are deep inside Bozeman Tunnel. Here is the same location in January as a manifest prepares for the downhill run to Livingston. 5-unit helper set was added at Bozeman for the shove up the west side of the pass. Near the east bore of Bozeman Tunnel, BNSF 778 West nears the summit with 3 Boeing 737 fuselages on the point of a manifest. We will watch as the airliners pass through the tunnel. Another MRL helper set has added its horsepower to the effort. The engineer has worked the throttle back to idle as the units disappear into the 3,051-foot bore of the tunnel. Trains crest Bozeman Pass at an elevation of 5,592 feet. The summit is just west of the tunnel. BNSF 7664 West takes a loaded grain train over the apex on a cold January morning. The bore of the original Bozeman Tunnel is visible to the right. It was built in 1884 at a length of 3,652 feet. The new tunnel was constructed during World War II and opened in 1945 to accommodate Northern Pacific's new 4664 Challenger-type steam locomotives. It is shorter and offers better clearance and ventilation. MRL's 841 local out of Livingston approaches the summit with a pair of SD35s number 405 and 406, plus GP9 number 127. The train is returning with a string of cars picked up at Logan. After cresting Bozeman Pass, trains roll past the 9,352-foot siding at West End. It's a late afternoon in July as BNSF 7237 West continues out of Bozeman Tunnel after dropping its rear-end helpers at Muir. As the train approaches, it will transition from power to dynamic braking for the downgrade, which reaches 1.9% near this location. Between West End and Bozeman near milepost 132, our westbound PGE coal train rolls down grade. The town of Bozeman lies at the foot of the pass and is the location of a 10,045-foot siding. An eastbound empty coal train passes a classic NP cantilever signal bridge and the old depot as it prepares for a morning run over Bozeman Pass. The 841 local heads east between Belgrade and Bozeman. Belgrade is milepost 149.9 on the second subdivision. Track speed is again 60 as trains roll over mostly tangent track through Montana's Gallatin Valley. The fast running is short-lived as trains approach Logan and prepare to enter Lombard Canyon. MRL 406 leads the eastbound 841 local out of Logan on its afternoon trip back to Livingston. Departs with a high green at West Manhattan. Logan is milepost 164.6. It is here that the old NP route to Butte via Homestake Pass split from the main line through Helena. Today, it's MRL's 5th subdivision to Spire Rock. The 641 local led by MRL 252 and 253 prepare to head west. Just west of the junction at Logan, BNSF 4941 takes more Boeing 737 fuselages west along the Gallatin River. The train runs between Wichita, Kansas and Renton, Washington, near Seattle. Two BNSF business cars bring up the rear on this high-priority train. The train heads toward Lombard Canyon as the Gallatin River flows westward to meet with the nearby Jefferson and Madison rivers, thus creating the Missouri. Near the headwaters of the Missouri River, we find the Trident cement plant, which has been in operation since 1910. The plant is currently owned by Holcim Incorporated, one of the largest producers of cement and mineral products in America. A trackmobile switches a string of covered hoppers to be picked up by MRL. The clouds open, and a summer rain shower moistens the scene a bit as a westbound coal train passes the Trident plant and into Lombard Canyon. Farther up the canyon, we find the eastbound 641 local as it follows the Missouri past the Totson Dam between the sidings of Totson and Lombard. On our winter visit, we catch the PGE train one more time as it approaches Townsend. A strong Canadian storm system is about to make things much colder during our January visit. This train is rolling right into it as it heads to Helena for a crew change. It will be a cold night tonight on Bozeman Pass, as you will see coming up in Part 2. In the meantime, we move just west of Townsend as another coal train crosses the Missouri one more time before ascending Winston Hill. Leaving the Missouri River Valley, trains climb up Winston Hill along the east flank of the Elkhorn Mountains to the summit at Winston. A Pettibone high rail speed swing with rail in tow heads up the 0.62% grade. It passes under a high-wide detector at milepost 210.9.
MRL detector, milepost 210.9. No defects. Repeat, no defects. Total axles 1, 2, speed 15 miles per hour. Out.
An hour later, a 95-car LM train can be heard as it climbs the grade in the open country. MRL SD40-2 number 265 leads the charge up Winston Hill, with help from the 263 and SD45-2 number 330.
MRL detector, milepost 210.9. No defects. Repeat, no defects. Total axles 398. Speed 17 miles per hour. Out.
It's nearly sunset as we reach the east switch of Winston. The headlight of an approaching BNSF manifest train shimmers in the distance as it approaches the detector. The evening sun begins to break through the clouds, casting its warm light on an eastbound coal train waiting in the 8,401-foot siding. As the train labors up Winston Hill at 13 miles per hour, the light changes dramatically, illuminating showers over the Elkhorn Mountains and creating a double rainbow across Montana's big sky. Two GE-9s have their hands full on the 0.62% grade as they lug a 100-car manifest to the summit of Winston Hill. Without wasting any time, the Missoula East dispatcher lines the switch for the BNSF 6272, and the empty coal train continues its eastward journey to the Powder River Basin. Our next stop is East Helena, where we find the local switch crew preparing to spot a boxcar on a spur track before heading to Montana City with a cut of hoppers. MRL 109 is a chop-nosed GP9 rated at 1,750 horsepower. Just like clockwork, the crew uncouples the car from the hoppers, then gives it a little tug before pulling the pin. The engine is then taken over the switch ahead of the car. The switch is then thrown for the spur ahead of the car. A brakeman climbs on to spot the car at the desired location. The handbrake is tightened, and the car stops right where they want it, clear of the Montana City spur. Next, the 109 makes a reverse move to a joint with the hoppers. With the switch thrown again, the 109 takes the hoppers up the 4.8-mile spur to Montana City. We have arrived at Helena Yard. The depot is the only one on the MRL that boasts a clock tower. It serves as an office for train crews, as well as maintenance of way. Across from the depot, a set of helpers are tied down near a fueling track. 2 helper sets are stationed in Helena to assist trains over the 2.2% grades of Bozeman Pass, just west of here. Purchased in 2005, the EMD SD70 Aces were the first new locomotives acquired by the MRL. They number 4300 through 4315. A helper crew has been called to assist a heavy westbound grain train over Bozeman Pass. They board the waiting units and head west toward Helena Junction, where they will meet the train. Our last train of the day, BNSF 7254 West, departs Montana's capital city to rendezvous with the helpers. is a division point and crew change point on the MRL. As the train departs, it enters the 3rd subdivision, which runs 119 miles west to Missoula, headquarters for Montana Rail Link. The train easily lumbers out of town, where it will meet the helpers at Helena Junction, milepost 3. The climb up Bozeman Pass is going to prove difficult for this train due to locomotive failures. To keep the train from stalling, a unique solution will be devised, making for a great power show when the train reaches the Continental Divide at Blossburg. You'll see what happens coming up in Part 2. In the meantime, we hope you've enjoyed this look at the eastern end of MRL's Montana Main Line. Thanks for watching.